Hi folks, Mr. Teslonian back here again. Today what we're going to do is make a wood-powered chainsaw. So there's the chainsaw we're going to use. This is an older McCulloch or something like that. Pretty heavy duty. Those older saws are built pretty strong. We're also going to use this right here, which is an old propane style heater from a camper. And what we're going to do is start cutting this whole thing apart. The only part of this I really want is this case right here and these two sets of tubes. And before I start cutting it, I just wanted to show you what it originally started out looking like. You see the propane inputs here, you got your pilot light, all the rest of it. I'm going to take a Sawzall, I'm going to Sawzall these off because they are tack welded on, so to get this out of there I'm going to have to cut it. I'm going to have to Sawzall right here, I'm going to pull the tank out and I'll show you what it looks like from there. Alright, so I've got this gasifier powered chainsaw now complete. I'm just going to walk around real quick, kind of in a big broad circle, kind of show it to you from all these angles, show you what it looks like. That's the entire system sitting on an aluminum plate. That nice shiny plate you see right here, that's our bellow system. It's a big bellow, it's kind of collapsed right now. That allows us to get the gasifier up into temperature very, very fast. That was a friend of mine's idea to bring that up. He thought about a bee smoker, so I've added a bellow to it, and I'll show you that a little closer here in a moment. So you can see all the little parts and pieces here. I've added a fire extinguisher to it there. Underneath this is a radiator system to a propane-powered RV refrigerator, which I'll show you here in a moment when I flip it upside down. Go ahead and finish the walk around. Alright, so now let's just start out with the basics here. We've got our chainsaw sitting mounted to the system. There's two main bolts holding the chainsaw on there. The balance point with the old handle that used to come up right here, you can see it in the original shots of this, the balance point was no longer going to work, so I had to build my own handle and offset the balance point on this just a little more over. That way when you hold the saw, it stays nice and centered. It was tipping too much with the original balance points. So I had to redo all that. Here's our gas output from the gasifier, which is this. That was that RV style propane heater that I pulled out. I showed you that originally. That's our gas output line. It runs down in here. When I pull the chainsaw off in a minute here, you'll be able to see all this a lot better. But that is the refrigerator cooling system from that RV refrigerator. You can see the lines running back and forth in there. I measured it out. There's about 12 foot of tubing inside of that entire system. That's quite a bit of tubing to help cool this. So the ash catch, so the gas comes down this. This is kind of a primary resin or oil catch and an ash catch right here. Goes into the tank before going into the smaller lines. That way we don't plug that line. And I'll show you there's an output over here on the side that we can dump it all out from that side and clean that thing out. So let's go on to the gasifier real quick here. You can see I've got a nice T-handle on the top of it. I made these like T-bolts to help untwist those wing nuts that were originally on it. And I'll take one of these off real quick just to show you. It's kind of a wing nut welded on there. That makes it nice and easy to get to when you're trying to move this thing around or open it up to feed it. So let's move around this thing, keep showing you what we got. This is our chimney pipe coming out of the gasifier. And let me go down here. So that top tube coming out of the propane heater here was where I welded the actual chimney pipe, and that helps keep the draw running. You're going to need some kind of chimney pipe to get the draw running right, to get this up to gasifier temperature. Down here you can see the bellow injection system has an air gap, so that way when you're not pumping the bellow, air can still draw into the bottom. That's your air feed in. But if you notice right in here, let me zoom in for you. That's the pipe that comes out of the bellow, delivering a pressurized air burst through this. It captures a little more air through the venturi that goes on and grabs a bunch of volume, throws it through the gasifier, and we get a nice high temperature in there. And when you're using the bellow, the chimney pipe is going to be open. Right now you can see the top lid to the chimney pipe is closed, and what you do is you kind of pull this back, you set it off of there, and to start it up, you'll open up the lid there to the chimney pipe. And that'll give you your flow dynamics that you need to get this up to temperature. Alright, so now we're looking at the bellows system that I put together. Let me go ahead and unhook this. There we go. That comes right off of there, and you open up the bellows system. You can see how nice that is. Back here, I'm going to actuate it in a moment. Back here is our quick release for the bellow. The bellow is not always needing to be attached to this. It's just something you attach while you get it started. You're going to pop this. Let me set up the camera. It's going to take two hands to work this thing off of there, right? Let me set up the camera so I can show you how it comes off. Alright, so I'm going to pop that latch I showed you. You can see up at the top of the screen right there. It's going to take a little bit of pressure, but you just wiggle this thing back and forth, just like that, and it pops right off of there. So there's your bellow, nicely detached from the rest of the system. You can see here how it clamps on. You can see some of the air hole draw around there, the actual air input into the system, and it's got the air draw into the bellow right here. Alright, just to put it back on real quick for you, you're going to start out with the top one. Just going to align the rod a little bit there, go down to the bottom one, get that aligned, and just kind of push it on, just like that. And lock the lock. And now to actuate the bellow, you're going to go like this, and that gives a lot of airflow into that gasifier and to get it started really fast and up to temperature. And once again, when it's actually lit, you're just gonna pop the latch, pull the thing right back off of there just like that, set that aside, and now there's your chainsaw ready to go. Once I get this thing running, I want to see if I can mix the air right here. This will give a lot more time between the air mixing into the wood gas and getting to the actual carburetor over here. Kind of give that mix a little bit more time to cool and mix properly. If not, we're going to run it from this valve over here, which I'll show you. But anyway, so there's also a drain valve, so you can drain any liquids or anything that have collected inside of this. Now this fire extinguisher is also a filter system. Alright, so inside of this, I have a rod hooked up to a bolt on the bottom side of the fire extinguisher top. I've got kind of a curly Q hook here, so you wrap the material around a few times, that way it doesn't come unattached. And inside of this is a big length of cotton t-shirt that you can pull out of there. That fills kind of a nice filtering system at the very end here. You can remove the filter, pull it out and exchange that, and you push it back in there. I'm going to leave that out for the rest here. It'll take me a moment to get that in there, so we'll kind of let that hang. But there's a secondary, or the last final filter before it goes into the engine. Out of the top of the fire extinguisher, your gas pipe comes out here, travels down. Let me undo the cap here so you can see where it goes into the carburetor. I've cut out the cap so you can allow for the piping to go through and still use the original cap. From this angle, you should be able to look down and see the plate that mounts up to the carburetor there. I still need to clean all the welding BBs off of that, obviously. But that's where the wood gas itself, with the fresh air mixed in with it, goes into the carburetor. And I had to modify a couple pieces here just to make it so the trigger still went to this butterfly valve that actually delivers more or less fuel to the engine. That's going to probably work just fine. It's not a needle valve. It's actually a nice butterfly valve in there. That should work. I don't have to modify this carburetor. The air to fuel mixture right here, this is where you'll add fresh air into the gas and get the air to fuel mixture right. And then you'll regulate how much fuel is actually making it into the engine from right here through your trigger. This should work great. I don't like how short of a time frame the gas and the fresh air have to mix together right here. It's going to work fine for starting it up, but like I said earlier, the valve at the bottom of the fire extinguisher may actually work a lot better to give a little more time, a little more cooling to everything. Let me go ahead now and pull the top off our gasifier. And I already pulled one of these wing nut pieces off of here. Let me go ahead and just finish off the last one over here. Alright, so there's our double wing nuts. We got a T-handle here so we can pull this off. There's our lid. You can see here, this is the gas output into the engine coming out there. I've got a screen around the tip of it, kind of a cone screen. That helps keep the material from getting in there. We've got a flat plate in the bottom which has air holes all the way around the flat plate, not through the center. We're going to throw the material on top of that. That flat plate right there is sitting right about where my thumb tip is on this line, which is above our air input right here. So this, our air input comes in below that flat plate. The air has to go around those side grooves and into the wood mass. And because there's no air here at the top being introduced into the system, that's going to make a good wood gas production at the top. We're going to draw that wood gas off without any oxygen added, cool it through the system there, back up, filter it, and into the carburetor. Pretty simple wood gas design. I actually didn't alter this at all. That was the plate that was in it. I just flipped it upside down. That would have typically been the bottom of the unit. So that's all I did here. This should work fine. You can put some screen in there to keep small chunks from falling down, but those actual small chunks work pretty good to keep the fire going inside of the bottom of it. Underneath the chainsaw, you see this metal plating. It goes all the way around the entire thing, and that's around the coils down here. And maybe through there, if I zoom in, you can see some light coming in. You can see the screen down through the coils down there that's letting the air come up. And also, down here at the bottom, I've got an air gap right there between these legs that are holding it up off the bottom, so fresh air can draw underneath right there, and that is going to allow it to create kind of like a fan shroud around this, creating a higher draw density around those coils based not only on the heat in the coils, the gasifier heat and the chainsaw heat up above it. All that heat rising off of everything is going to create kind of a draw through this whole system. So I've got the two main screws that hold the chainsaw to this unit. They're undone, they're pulled out of there. I'm going to go ahead now and just remove the chainsaw from it for a moment right there in front of you so you can see this. It takes a little bit of maneuvering, but we can get it out of there pretty easy. Just about like that. And wham. Now we've got our chainsaw. Alright, now that I've got that out of there, one of the things that could be done with this, and I'm going to show you here when we go to run it, hopefully I can find some hose by then, is you're going to be able to run a hose from this system back here, either from right here or underneath, out to the chainsaw, so you don't have to pack this whole thing around on the chainsaw. You can use it either attached, which it's designed for, or the way it detaches like this and still leaves one of the parts here on the chainsaw, You can run a hose between the two of them, set the bottom of this where the radiator is, down in the snow, just like you see around me right now, or you could set that down in a creek or a mud puddle or something like that to cool it, giving you kind of a better cooling efficiency and a lot less weight, obviously, on the chainsaw. Now that we got the chainsaw out of there, you can see what's going on behind it a lot clearer and what's going on underneath it. See, it just got a brace bar up top here the chainsaw rests on, a couple mount points there and there. We got this radiator cooling system that came from an old refrigerator unit, RV style propane refrigerator unit that's sitting down in there. You see all the mount points here. You can see how it rests in between. You go ahead now and flip it upright. You can see the bottom of it. The protector screen here allows the airflow through, but when you set it down, obviously you can't just dent those coils underneath there, which you can't get the dents out of coils. It's very, very difficult. You got the legs here. Let me give you some perspective. So there you go, folks. That's what it looks like, separated from the chainsaw. And like I said, you could run a hose from one to the other. What you see over here at the top is that output or input to the carburetor pipe still remaining on the chainsaw. You'd put one end of your gas line onto that, run that extended gas line all the way over to the output here, and you can regulate your flow. You're gonna want a ball valve right off the side right here. That way you can regulate the fuel to air mixture right at the chainsaw. And this way you don't have to pack the whole thing around like I said. Folks, I hope you enjoyed the build video on how to build your own wood-powered chainsaw. We're gonna do a separate video for the fire up and running of this. We're gonna have some logs set out, so that way you can buzz through some logs with it, show you how well it works.